Hey Jennifer, it's Connie. I wanted to take the time to talk to you about your lesson planning using this recording rather than write a whole lot of stuff. I think it'll be easier for you to understand how you can improve your lesson planning. You're doing pretty well, but there's some things that we have to make sure that we get in alignment so that what you're teaching and what the students are learning will be the same thing. So here you have your subject, the goals, the concept, and the standard. All of that is in alignment. And you also have a content objective that can relate to how many animal parents care for their children. Now, in this content objective, you say that they're going to learn the meaning of the word nocturnal, and then they're going to tell you this about the animals. Here, you're talking about reading comprehension, and students will be responding to who, what, when, where question, confirm predictions about what will happen next, identifying key words, and relate to prior knowledge. This objective and this standard, they do not align. Um, you would want to say something like the students will demonstrate comprehension given the book on owls, baby owls, by then telling what it is that they're going to do to demonstrate this comprehension. They're going to answer who, what, when, where questions, or they're going to make predictions, or they're going to identify keywords. That has to be in here because this and this must be in alignment. Now, what happens still is because even though that's not in alignment, you get further out of alignment as you go through the lesson. You just looking at this as the um, content objective of what the students will be able to do, meaning this is what you are going to measure for mastery at the end of this lesson. You then come down here to the assessment and you say that at the end of the lesson, they're going to summarize the story as a class. Well, summarization was not something that you said the students were going to do. They can do that, but you didn't say summarization is really not part of this standard. The part of this standard is comprehension by responding to questions, confirming predictions, and relating to prior knowledge. If you want to say they're going to summarize, you have to say that here. The students will summarize the lesson, they will demonstrate comprehension, they will do whatever that's going to be. So let's get back down here. Okay. Then you say you will call on a student to tell what happened at the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, and the end of the story using guided questions. That does not relate to what you said the content objective was, which about this whole thing with baby animals and their own parents. And you did say that there would be a few questions about new vocabulary. Again, you did not specifically address that in your content objective, even what the new, other than nocturnal, what the new vocabulary might be. So now when we get down here to the actual lesson, the strength was you give me enough detail for me to follow how the lesson is going to work. The problem is that the lesson and your objective do not align. So what you want to do is the reason you create the content objective so clearly with the verbs that the students, the thinking verbs the students are going to be using, and then how the students are going to be using that verb. And when I say that, I mean here in the content, they give you a verb, respond. And what is the students going to respond to? They're going to respond to questions. And what kind of questions are they going to respond to? Who, what, when, and where questions. So this is the skill the students are going to be using. This is the context. Respond to questions. They can respond to any kind of question. That's just a context, excuse me, the content. So that's the skill is the verb, and the noun is here the content or questions. The context in this case are types of questions who, what, when, and where. Here, you have the students. What is the noun verb? They're going to confirm. What is it the students are going to confirm? They're going to confirm predictions. Now we know that the students are going to, the skill is confirmed, the content is predictions. Now, that could be in any subject matter, any content area. Now you get specific with the context. What kind of predictions? The student will be able to confirm predictions about what will happen next in the story by identifying key words. That's another thing. Here we have how they are going to confirm their predictions. Finally, we have here, if we're doing all three of these, we don't have to do all three, but I'm just showing how you deconstruct the standards. What are the students going to do? The students will be able to relate. What are they going to relate? Prior knowledge. That's the skill. This is the content. And in what context are they going to be relating prior knowledge? They're going to use contextual information. So, given contextual information, the students will be able to relate prior knowledge. That's how you have to think about aligning your standards to your content objective. You have to see these words appear in the content objective, and then you have to see these words appear again in the assessment. When you do that, you will have completely aligned your teaching, and now you can create the map that will make sure that you ask and structure the lesson in such a way that the lesson will reflect the goals that you've already stated for this lesson. The other thing that I want you to do is I want you to give me more narrative. I want you to tell me these are the questions I'm going to ask the students. Hopefully, the students will give me this answer. I also want you to say where you're going to have the students. I call the students to come to the rug, or the students are sitting at their tables and I'm in the front of the room using an overhead projector, or the students are sitting in groups of four, in pairs, or however that is. You need to describe exactly what you're doing as though you were writing a script narration. I will say this and the students will say that. I'll ask the students the question. I will give the students opportunity to pair share. They'll have 30 seconds to pair share. They'll have 30 seconds to share out to the class. And then I'm going to ask the next question. And you can ask a question that say, hopefully the students will say this. Because if they don't, then we just know that you will say it, but at least I know why you're asking a question like that. The level of detail has to be much greater here because when you start your TPAs next term, you are going to be writing in almost in minutia about what you are going to be doing in the teaching and learning process in your lessons. And I want you to get used to that now. If I can critique it now and get you on the right road, even though your TPAs will be tedious, they will be accessible to you because you will be used to the level of detail. Additionally, the alignment that you will get from the practice that you get here will also help you on those TPAs. Evaluators are going to be looking for that. In the long run, however, that alignment will help you as an educator. The last thing that I wanted to bring up, and this is very important, is class information. Right here is where you really need to describe who you're teaching, and it needs to be more than what you have here. It really needs to be detailed. Who do you have in the class? What do you know about them? What do you know about their socioeconomic or the context of their community? What about the school? What about the kids? How many kids do you have that are at below basic or at basic? How many kids do you have that came to you with reading? If there have been any assessments, what are the assessments that have taken place on these children? What is it that you have observed? How many of them can sit still for a long period of time? How many of them come to you with prior vocabulary and reading skills? The very first time you write that, it goes into a lot of detail. After that point, you can cut and paste it into all subsequent lesson plans that are using this population. So I've got to see more detail here. That's because you can't, if you don't know the kids, you can't teach them. And you have to demonstrate to the evaluator that you do know who you're teaching. When you do that, then these adaptations will be broader and they'll be greater. And the difficulties that you anticipate will actually increase because you're going to know I've got one student I'm going to have to make sure that I do this with. I have another student who tends to be this way, so I've got to make sure I do that. And so when you start talking about the adaptations you're going to use, they'll be much more detailed. You're always going to be adapting. But in your TPAs, you have to articulate your adaptations. And this is the practice that you're getting here is not great enough for me to feel secure enough that you're going to be able to meet the demand of the TPA. So I want you to know why I'm going to ask you to rewrite this lesson. I want it broadened. I want more detail in it. Once you've done that, I can improve your grade on the module. But until that's done, I'm going to hold the module with a C, not because I don't think that most of the work that you did was appropriate and well done. It's just that this is so very important. I will work with you on improving this lesson plan. And once you have rewritten this lesson plan so I know that you can see the full picture of what to do, then I'll go ahead and change the grade in for this module to a B. But I do need for you to rewrite this lesson plan. So I've made the video, and if you have any questions after you've looked at it as you're working on the lesson plan, please let me know how I can help you. So I will get this back to you, and please feel free to call me or text me or get in touch with me if you have any questions. Thank you. Bye.